Good morning and welcome to Snow Talk, the podcast of the Snow and Ice Management Association, where we bring you trends, stories, news, and personalities that are shaping the professional snow and ice management industry. I'm your host, Martin Tirado of SIMA. I'm here in beautiful Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Quick thank you to our sponsor. This season of Snow Talk is sponsored by Western Snowplows and Fisher Engineering. Thank you for your ongoing support. Now let's grab our snow shovels, let's dig in and start talking snow. We have a fantastic guest today, Jacob Schiavo, CSP in Ashby, Massachusetts. Thank you for joining us, Jacob. And just to start off real quick, let's tell me a little bit about JSP Site Solutions, what your company does and kind of what you do.
Sure. Well, firstly, thanks so much for having us on the show, Martin. It's an honor. JSP Site Solutions is we're an exterior services firm. We're based in New England. We provide commercial snow and landscape management, as well as run a tree division and an earth removal operation.
That's great, diversified in the services that you perform. And I was curious too, how did you first get into snow and ice management?
Well, Martin, my father was a general contractor and a facilities director at an industrial park. And, when I was a little kid, he used to bring me to work. And I can remember about as far back as the blizzard of '94, we got about 3 feet of snow. And I spent days with my father clearing this industrial park open. And I guess from a young age, I've had this obsession with machines, big trucks, diesel engines, anything that does big, heavy work has always really had an interest to me. And it's sort of been my calling since I was a little kid.
Well, that's great to hear. That's actually a great personal family building story. Actually, I think that really segues into, I think, one of the great stories and why we wanted to have you on the podcast. And that's kind of the work that you performed, kind of going back now a little more than a year ago, and it's Hurricane Helene. It's the fall of 2024. And for those that need a quick memory jog, that hit the Southeast United States and devastated many communities with incredible flooding, particularly in the Carolinas. I remember seeing a lot of news stories, just the devastation of some cities and towns in the Carolinas, and they really needed emergency services. So you heard about this, and you have a really powerful story on kind of how you helped out. Can you just tell us a bit about that and how it started and what inspired you to assist in that storm?
Well, first of all, it was a really life-changing event for us that really we spent about 6 or 7 months in the Carolinas, and it took quite a bit out of us mentally, physically, the different stories that we heard from folks over the years. As with winter, we get into the fall. We always watch the weather very closely in our business, as you know. For 2 weeks we were watching this massive storm that was supposed to form, and as the storm strengthened and intensified, we began receiving phone calls from folks in the Appalachian Mountains. We know some folks that are down in that area through various trade groups, and our phones started ringing from insurance carriers to other tree companies that were looking for that they needed some serious help. And we have a couple cranes here at JSP, and that was the biggest demand was for us to send some of our bigger assets down to help some folks down in the south. So within a day, we had a team meeting, and just about everybody in the company, part of our tree division, wanted to go and help out. And by that point, it had hit the news a little bit, and we knew that they were in trouble and that we had the ability to go down and help. So I almost felt morally obligated to go down and give a hand, because I just wouldn't have felt right knowing that our equipment would have been sitting in our yard. The tree season usually comes to a halt September, October. So we made the decision to put a response team together and head south.
Yeah, that's really a great commitment to helping out people in need. That was a a great story to hear. And kind of to go a little further into that, so you brought down your heavy equipment to the Carolinas, and then where did you start? Kind of where did you go to, and what connections did you make?
Well, our first order of business was to set up a staging yard, and there really wasn't a lot of places to set up. However, we found a Walmart store that was more than accommodating. They let us build a hub in their parking lot. We brought an RV down and we packed coolers. We brought fuel. We brought supplies, and we even used the empty space in our trucks to bring much needed supplies down to the area. We were involved with a couple local fire departments, and there's a mayor in Leominster, Massachusetts, Dean Mazzarella. We went on his local radio show, and he immediately started gathering essential supplies at their emergency management building, and we sort of acted as a go-between to bring supplies that were gathered from the fire departments and the local towns. Everybody that we asked for help was willing to help. I think even Pepsi sent like pallets of bottled water as part of our initial request. So there are a lot of moving pieces that went into gearing up and deploying self. And again, it was much more than us working for our clients. We really felt obligated to help folks out. And we worked with nonprofit organizations while we were down there in our off time. I even brought my wife and kids came down, and we volunteered at a nonprofit, and right around Thanksgiving. And my kids they couldn't grasp the concept of what happened. And once they saw firsthand what it was like down there, it was a real strong family lesson for us. And we taught our kids about humanity, and we just wanted to show them that it wasn't just about us going down there to work for profit, because we are a for-profit company, but we're human too, and we treated the region the way that we would want to be treated if that happened to us. It has happened to us up here in New England, and we had a major ice storm, and folks were coming from all over the country to give us a hand when we were without power for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great lesson for your family. I know that you're very close to your family, and your wife is in the business. And, I hear stories and see stuff about, your kids on social media. So that's great. You're kind of giving them those lessons at an early age. Just
Absolutely.
too, what was the area like city-wise that you were located down there? And what was the response from people who live there? Some people lost everything. People lost their homes. They lost their businesses. Even if they kept their homes, they were out of power for, I know, some people for weeks. So what was the area? So go ahead. Yeah.
There's still some, February of 26th, there's still some areas that roads haven't been rebuilt and infrastructure has yet to be restored. There's still folks in the South that are living in RVs, and there's just scores and scores and scores of folks who had insurance, and they're dealing with issues, receiving insurance coverage. If you had flood insurance, for instance, they would tell you that this wasn't a flood, this was a hurricane. You didn't have hurricane insurance. I personally witnessed houses that were swept away. I was told, stories that just were absolutely, tragic and heartbreaking. When we first made our way into Western North Carolina, you could see the devastation, the mudslides, where the floodwaters had risen 40 or 50 feet in some cases above their highest flood stage. The first thing we did when we got down there, we brought a semi truckload of hay bales, and we brought it to a farm. And I think the next relief that we brought down was truckloads of pallets that were shrink wrapped with essential supplies, which we brought to the nonprofits.
Wow, that's incredible. And what we talked about, in the past or you told me a bit, was the response from the community. You made some great connections and relationships with people who were very thankful. And things of that nature, correct?
Yeah, lifelong. I've made some lifelong friends now that I'm still in contact with today.
Yeah. So what was some of the main work that you did there? Was it like site restoration, clearing like debris and opening up roads and things
So
like that?
clearing debris, opening up roads and driveways. In some cases, we couldn't even make it to certain areas until they built temporary bridges. I mean, there were thousands of bridges that were washed out. But our main priority was to lift trees off of and out of people's houses, off of people's cars, and to help people open their properties back up so they could board up, so they could board up, or so they could tarp their roof over and begin to assess the damage. In some cases it really didn't matter because a lot of structures were a total loss, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you were like you and others are clearing, and those people at some point in time are going to need to rebuild, right?
That's correct. That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, you'd mentioned so you were there for roughly 6 months. So you took a winter off. That was over the winter season, and you weren't back in Massachusetts. You were helping with this hurricane relief.
Yeah, that's correct. So we we hired and fulfilled additional capacity for our mission in the South. It was business as usual in the Northeast. Cayenne, my wife, oversaw day-to-day operations. So the show went on, and it was more or less adding capacity and fulfilling
Yeah. Yeah, you worked probably with some of your partners at like in snow, other contractors to
so
service properties
Oh
that.
yeah, we have as you know, we have a very strong service provider network. Our self perform element was not affected, but we did we did receive some help from various extensions of our team in the Northeast. And to answer your question is to when we were down there, we headed south maybe 2 or 3 days after the hurricane hit. We could finally we had to figure out how we were going to make our way in because there were so many roads and bridges that were completely washed out. But it was about 3 days after the hurricane, and the storm waters receded until about the middle of April. We're probably there for about 7 months, Mark.
Okay, yeah, yeah, that's a significant commitment to being away from where you're used to being in Massachusetts and helping out. That's really incredible. And then you kept your snow company going, through your wife remotely. I think that's an impressive feat to do as well too.
Well, we have a really strong team, and Cayenne was here to oversee our management, and down to the down to our teams that are out in the field. She was able to report to me, if they needed my help. I was available. I was always available by phone, and I was we're on our computers, so our CRM gives me complete transparency to what the crews are. Martin, did I lose you?
No, we're good. Keep going.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We'll edit this portion out. So just restart again.
Yeah, I sorry about that. I didn't have my phone on silent,
It's okay.
so
You use your CRM on your computer to.
we were able to use our CRM platform to see in real time what the conditions of our sites were. We use a WeatherWorks platform, so our storm reports were in, and we could keep a track on our work orders. So even during a storm, I was still involved in the day to day.
Yeah, I just think it's a great story. It's like really people helping others, other citizens when they really need it, and I'm sure the local community was very thankful for you. And I actually, people like me, even thankful that there's people out there like you that are willing to help out people in need in emergency situations. So I'm sure you've heard it before. We just want to say thanks for what you did. Want to just then kind of let's fast forward again then to like this winter season. So you're back at home in Massachusetts, and
Yes,
we've had
sir.
a significant winter this year, including just recently a huge storm. And I was really intrigued by the work that you're doing and with snow melters. It's a niche um, business to be in, and niche equipment that not everybody has. You see them more in kind of urban areas or airports. But tell me how you kind of been helping out battling some of the big winter storms we've had this winter, particularly on the snow melting side.
So, our sites, just about every property across our portfolio has swelled shut with, we got 18 to 24 inches of snow, and in certain pockets there's probably somewhere in the 30-inch range, and then factor in snow drifts and the extreme cold, which it never went away here, Martin. It was almost, I think you sent us some of your Wisconsin air.
Yeah,
So when we melt snow on sites, it's we find it to be a more cost effective approach for our clients, because there's no tipping fees that folks have to pay. We don't have to hire additional trucks, and we can get the work done. A lot of times we can get the same job done in half the time with a fraction of the
yeah.
required.
Yeah, what are some of your customers think about the melting services and how you've been able to kind of sell those services to them? And
They love the savings, and they love the fact that we can get them open in an instant, as opposed to plowing, clearing, staging, and then removing the snow from the site. There's no delay. If you Our clients that have negative parking, they love being able to come into work and not have any issues with folks getting through their lots, or so we service colleges, municipalities, healthcare facilities, and we do a fair amount of work for multi-unit national brands. More than anything, they appreciate when we can get their sites open more expeditiously.
and you've kind of opened up the melting services to other people in the area, right? Have you gotten? I'm guessing with that amount of snowfall, and particularly in some congested areas, you've been getting some interest from sites that
Yeah, that's
want to use a snow melter. So yeah,
that's correct. We've melted from Maine out to Buffalo, and even down into the south. The units are mobile, so we can take them anywhere, anywhere in the country that needs help. And we help out a lot of other SIMA members as well when they need a little bit of additional horsepower.
yeah, that's fantastic. That's great. And you even have you have some melters yourself, but then you have like a network of some others that you're coordinating with as well too.
So
Tell me how a
so
little
we
more.
have we have two, and we have several others that are within our group, and just within our direct network. We have 6 or 7 tree can melters, ranging in size from 60 through 135 ton per hour. We can melt anywhere from 250 to 600 cubic yards an hour, depending on the capacity of the you know of the unit that we're using.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, yes. To kind of talk a little bit about that network side of it as well too, and I'm slightly familiar with this story, but kind of like how you first became known or knew of SIMA. It was kind of a random thing. Tell me how you first did, how you
Yeah,
what.
so we've gone over this in the past. So I met my good friend and mentor Mike Merrill back in 2014 when we were in Buffalo. I met him randomly at a rest stop after working a gazillion hours, and we were there doing the same kind of work, just different. We were working for different clients, and we hit it off. We met at a rest stop, and we probably talked for like 2 or 3 in the morning after being up for like 6 or 7 days. And I met somebody that was just as passionate about what I do, which I thought was great. And we sort of forged a relationship right then and there. And, we are always there to help them, and they're all, his company's always there to, to help us.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And it was, I'm sorry, Michael Merrill introduced us to the SIMA network, and we met all these wonderful people that are, we're more that you meet more with SIMA. I love it so much because we have made lifelong friends in addition to developing business relationships. We will, we'll get together in, other regions of the world, sometimes where there's palm trees to get together and put a plan together for the following winter. We'll even after the season's over, sometimes we've gotten together and, again, we love to talk about snow down in Florida. It just kind of takes the edge off of it.
Yeah, it's always good sometimes to get away in any environment like that, get away, kind of refresh the mind, able to meet with other peers and colleagues and friends to kind of talk about business and snow strategies. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, that's right, Martin. And it's the best part about SIMA and having and building a network, whether it's our network or it's another group in another region, it's about being able to bounce ideas off of each other and being able to help each other, solve some of the most complex problems. If you had a bad day or you have an issue with a storm, you can vent to somebody else that is most definitely feeling your pain. If I have a 30-inch storm here, likely one of my colleagues that's somewhere else in the Northeast is going to have some pain points. And what we do is it's not perfect. All you can do is your very best. As with any business, small hiccups can surface, and having a SIMA network has really been imperative to the success of the growth of our brand.
That's great success story. I've kind of been reiterating and saying to people, it's not about you, Jacob. It's not about me. It's about us. We're a community, and we're only going to be as strong as the community that we have, and as it grows, and that we can rely, support, help find solutions to some of the challenges in the winter industry. And that's a great example of
absolutely
random meeting at a truck stop, late at night after working crazy hours, and what that's led to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just thought about something there when you said winter challenges. The greatest challenge that we're seeing in our industry now, and I'm sure this is salt shortages because of how intense of a winter it is. Can you tell me a time when you remember when we had snow on the ground in 48 states simultaneously, Martin? I mean, it's kind of a phenomenon. It's kind of a phenomena in my eyes. What do you think?
Yeah, certainly. I'd say Western U.S. and Canada has been a little bit more of a drought, but Great Lakes, Midwest to the Northeast, and certainly what's really hit this winter is a lot of the Mid-Atlantic and Southern areas that typically haven't had snowfall. Kind of, it certainly has had a cascading effect.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, hey, as we wrap up our podcast here and discussion, just want to say thanks again, Jacob, for all that you've done. And you kind of talked about how you first got into the snow industry, but I just want to ask you just a fun question. What was one of your favorite memories as a kid when you're growing up?
When my dad used to take me to work, I think, and he used to let me run some of the heavy equipment under his supervision. And I want to say learning how to operate tractors and learning about learning about the mechanical and hydraulic systems. It's always been an interest to me. That and music. I've played the piano when I was a kid, and I've taught myself how to play the guitar. Starting in COVID.
Great.
So I would say music is one of my is one of my favorites, and as well as anything with mechanics. I've always been intrigued by how things work. what goes into an engine. I've always been very curious and wanting to learn.
Well, that's great. Honestly, I think it's how rare that is. Like kids like me and others, we like to play with toys as a kid, like small toys, but you actually just from a relationship that you had in your family growing up, you were actually able to play with the big toys and the real stuff as certainly as you got a little bit older too. So that's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Jacob, again, thank you for all that you've done for not only the snow industry, but your help in hurricane relief. I think it's just a very powerful story. So thanks for joining me today on the podcast. And of course, wanted to thank our sponsors, Western Snowplows and Fisher Engineering. And looking forward to future conversations with guests. And thank you. And we'll talk to you on the next podcast.
Thanks so much, Martin. And again, if anybody that's listening needs help with any sites, we're still available to help out our SIMA peers. Whether they need snow melting or just help getting through it. Anybody that wants to shoot me an email and talk more, I can be reached at jake@jspsitesolutions.com, and more than happy to speak with anyone or maybe help people work on some of their systems.
Yeah, perfect. Yep, you're right. Jacob, JSP Site Solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin. Have a great day.